After 2 decades of war, a simple idea: special support to prevent children being trafficked out of Afghanistan. And a simple government pledge: we will match, pound for pound, any money raised, up to a ceiling. A £500,000 target was met, but the government support has been delayed by nearly a year, potentially jeopardising the project run by the War Child charity.
The government is not doing what it said it would do, and it was a very simple promise. You raise a pound and we will match that pound.
The project in Afghanistan is an early casualty of the cuts in overseas aid spending. The first cuts were triggered automatically when the economy shrank at the start of the pandemic. A smaller economy meant that the original 0.7% of gross national income devoted to aid went down by £700 million. The spending has been cut by a further £3.5 billion after the government's decision to cut the proportion of gross national income devoted to aid from 0.7 to 0.5%. Even with those cuts, the UK is still spending more on aid as a percentage of national income than 5 other G7 countries: France, Japan, Canada, Italy and the US. But War Child says the delay in the UK aid match grants will have a major impact.
The project that we were proposing is to stop children being trafficked from Afghanistan into Iran. It's an amazing project that will help children to either stay in school or get back into school, or older children, 17, 18, to develop a way of earning a living so that they're not vulnerable to trafficking. And whilst the government might think a delay of a year is a reasonable proposition, the project means that we won't be able to stop about 3,000 children being trafficked into Iran over the next 12 months.
The charity has supporters on the Tory benches.
Well, of course it's jeopardising their project, and this is just a very clear-cut example of how a rash decision to cut from 0.7 to 0.5 is leaving great organisations like War Child shortchanged.
Even a prominent advocate of the wider aid cuts thinks the government should perhaps have a rethink.
Anything that can be done to rid us of the evil trafficking gangs is to be welcome, and I would support any charity that's doing that. And the government, of course, has still got £10 billion, and it should direct it into areas that will real benefit.
The government acknowledges that there will be a delay in match funding to War Child and other charities in a similar position. But sources insist that the charities have been given a cast-iron commitment that the funds will be protected and delivered next April. And that is seen as significant in Whitehall, where what are described as difficult spending decisions have been taken. But trouble is brewing on the Tory benches over the wider cuts in aid spending.
I hope that the Prime Minister, during his time as Foreign Secretary, saw the value of the aid budget, the development budget, and what impact it has on the world. So he has said in previous times that he would like to see this budget restored. We know now that the economic forecasts are set to see in 2022 the economy recover to pre-pandemic levels. Let's see if we can get the government to move to their commitments and bring back 0.7% at the start of 2022.
But there is support for the government.
Well, after the cuts, we'll be still spending £10 billion a year. We're one of the highest overseas aid providers in the whole world. So that's hardly downgrade. I mean, many countries in the European Union will, even after this so-called cut, will spend a lot less than we do on overseas aid. And I don't think I make any apology for the fact that £4 billion is now going to be spent in this country rather than given overseas to, well, in some cases, very dubious programmes.
Help from afar, but much needed UK aid is now being cut. Repercussions in distant lands and a political row back home.
Nick, what with that report? Well, joining us now, Carey Mulligan, War Child Ambassador and actor, Andrew Bridgen, the Conservative backbench MP, and Andrew Mitchell, the former International Development Secretary. I'll come to you each in turn. Carey Mulligan, if I can start with you. When did you first learn the news that the decision you thought had been made, a cast-iron guarantee, was reversed, pushed back?
So I learnt about 2 weeks ago about the decision.
And what were you feeling when you heard about it?
Yeah, honestly, pretty devastating news for us and for War Child and for the countless numbers of people who, gave their time and their support and their money towards this campaign under the understanding that it was money that would be matched pound for pound.
So you worked with, am I right in saying, the Express newspaper? You went out and you asked the British public on the understanding that this was a project that would start when?
So this would be a project that would start in 2 months' time, so in July, and we worked with the media partner of the Daily Express, and we fundraised alongside them and with our regular donors and lots of different initiatives. We had a peace band, which was an initiative, a campaign to do a circumference of the globe. So, there was a donor who ran 10 marathons in 10 days, and people really dug in and really gave money in a time that was extremely difficult. And that was done with this promise that their money would go further. And we feel that a promise has been broken. We upheld our side of this deal. And sadly, the government are choosing at the moment to go back on their word.
The government would say it's not a broken promise, it's just a delay, the money's still there. What's the harm when it will come to you in the end?
I think with this project, specifically with this campaign, we've been very clear from the beginning that this is a time-sensitive project. It would be an utter tragedy if one child was trafficked as a result of this decision, but we know that actually it will be thousands more, and that this was a time-sensitive project to protect children from the very real danger of being trafficked across the border because of the situation we're in now, where families are really struggling to pay for food and for basic living because of COVID.
And do you understand when the government says, well, this is a pandemic, everyone's pulling in their purse strings, it was exceptional circumstances, essentially?
Yeah, of course. And there's no one here from War Child today talking about the wider aid cuts, as devastating as they are. We're here talking about a specific promise that was made to War Child.
Yeah. And you went to the British public for that money. Do you feel it makes it harder for you to go back now to do this kind of campaign again?
I think it's just really important, and we feel it's really important to be transparent with the public and with our donors specifically about where their money's going. And if we tell them that it's going towards a specific project and it doesn't go there, we need to be honest about it. And it's so important that public trust is there when they give their money.
Carey Mulligan, thanks very much indeed.